Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Hensley. I just joined Unbounded as a technical advisor about 4 months ago, but I actually met Zach and Dave at a Bitcoin meetup that I used to host in San Francisco late 2018. And through that meeting, they were very, they were in the crypto space, but they definitely did not have a thesis that resembles what's been presented today. And we discussed a lot of that at the beginning in 2018. And I think a lot of those conversations have led to kind of what Unbounded is today. So it kind of makes sense that now we're working together, and I think it's going to be really positive for the future. And I think this event has gone off to a great start. So I'm really happy to be a part of it. And for me, I'm actually very involved in the Bitcoin space, personally doing development, consulting. So, I'm not just a top down technical person. I'm hands in every day, and I'm also helping these guys out. So I'm really looking forward to the future. And so next, we'll be having Kurt, one of my good friends who I've known for also quite some time, presenting on Gorilla Pool. And Gorilla Pool is one of my favorite companies in the space because not only are they a mining operation that's doing some different stuff with development, doing big data, even some more fun stuff with marketing and NFTs, but they have values in terms of not necessarily chasing the dollar signs, but knowing their customers, selling to those customers, and not mining other Bitcoin chains like BTC, BCH, the other fork of BCH. But they only mine BSV, and so they're very staying true to their values, and they're trying to serve their customers and make some money in the long run. So welcome, Kurt Worker Jr.
A lot of people think of me as that guy with a big opinion in Bitcoin. I'm the guy you see on podcasts and the guy you occasionally see on Fox Business. And I had a technical developer tell me to stay in my lane because I didn't actually know what I was talking about because I'm just a commentator guy. I'm a theory guy. And so I started a giant mining pool and now I hold a few world records for proof of work blockchain scaling. That's how it goes sometimes. Basically, my theories, I said, you know what? No, I think my theories are right. I'm going to put my own money in. Me and a couple buddies put together Gorilla Pool. And now um, I'm going to tell you about it. So we are just some predicate knowledge. If you don't know how Bitcoin mining works, going from left to right, top to bottom, transactions are broadcast to the network. They're gathered by the nodes of the network, which are the computers that collect that data. Whoever finds a valid proof of work using an ASIC miner, which is the thing on the top right over here, they win the hash or they find the hash, they build the block. That block is propagated. The reconciled block is proposed with that proof of work. If it's accepted by the rest of the network, you get the coins in the subsidy as well as the fees of that block. That's all we're doing. Just so you know a little bit of how that works. So Gorilla Pool, again, left to right. This is what our operation looks like in a very basic sense. So you have the Bitcoin network, which is a little combobbled here on this screen. Um, these are the nodes of the network. The one all the way on the right says GP. That's my company. Our nodes are giant data servers. They're big compute. Okay, so our pool overlays on top of it. The pool allows collective hash power to connect to our pool. We collectivize that hash power. We solve these problems together. People get distributed their payouts relative to how much hash they provide to the pool. If you'd like to hash with us, please come speak to me after. I can connect you. We offer hosting and a bunch of other things. Here's what one of our mobile data centers looks like. We actually use the Titan product. The Titan product is produced by an old friend of mine from Chicago. This is a completely purpose built integrated mobile data center. So it has internal plumbing, electricity, networking, racks. It is purpose built for ASIC mining of Bitcoin. Here's me sitting inside of one with a couple of Antminer, what are these? Antminer XP Hydros, which at the time were not readily available to the market, but we got to test some because we had some of the only infrastructure able to do that because my friend is one of the best hydro engineers in the world and said, hey, I think I can build mobile data centers cheaper than anybody. So we got to be a tester and all this stuff. This is the kind of stuff we deploy if you buy ASIC hashing with us. These are some of the most efficient computers in the world. Here's me inside of another mobile data center. So the hashing part is one side of the business, but we also have to have your classic server infrastructure for validating transactions and propagating actual blocks. So those look a lot like computers that you would recognize, except they're a lot bigger and more powerful. and that's the non-specialized part of Bitcoin. But clearly, it's getting more and more specialized. You can't just run a Bitcoin node on your Dell computer. It's certainly not in BSV. So when there are back to back to back gigabyte blocks, we're talking millions of transactions, which means tens of millions of signatures to validate and a data set to validate on a pretty quick schedule. All of a sudden, you start getting kicked off the network very quickly. People still try to do this on BSV. People try to run their own node because that's how they think they're supposed to run their business, and they fail. They should be outsourcing literally all of this to us at Gorilla Pool. We're a global company. These are pallets of ASIC miners that both we own or you could own if you wanted to buy one and mine with us. That's what they look like on a rack. You can see the fans and the networking and all of this stuff, but we are a global operation. We have ASICs manufactured in 3 Asian countries. So it's China, Singapore, Malaysia. We typically mine in the Western Hemisphere for various reasons. And here's what our hashing operations look like. Here's a little bit of an interior look on one of our mobile data centers. All of these spots, you can see the ASICs we are mining in Quebec, Washington State, North Carolina. And then we have data centers in Miami and then pretty close to here in Texas. And then we also have European operations for redundancy. And this is what the inside of some of these data centers look like from an interior view. So our data stuff and our hashing stuff is globally distributed. It is politically distributed. It is in order to keep us distributed enough to not have to deal with, oh shoot, Canada made hashing illegal. Now our operations offline, or same with Texas or Finland or wherever else. So we are a very, very resilient company when it comes to political, geographic, or some kind of weather-based event, for example, which is really good because we've had a lot of crazy weather that has knocked things off a few times. So the stuff that's in Texas, it gets too hot, or the stuff that's up in Quebec, it gets too cold. So good thing we're distributed like that. So now what? I basically just described Bitcoin mining to you. There's lots of Bitcoin miners, lots of people out there that say, hey, buy our stock. You get to mine Bitcoin too, or you can do a cloud mining contract. All of them are fake. Literally, the biggest names in Bitcoin mining are all fake companies. I mentioned in my previous presentation that Marathon Mining has never actually made $1 mining Bitcoin. They have done nothing but lose money from their core business model. They have made fantastic money raising money and then ultimately having their publicly traded stock, which is one of the best stocks you could have bought 3 years ago. But now they're barely hanging on by a thread. They're every major public Bitcoin mining company is in reorganization of some sort right now as we speak. What's the problem? That really sucks. Means they're bad at Bitcoin and they're good at old world businesses or fundraising or other things, which, that's the easy part. There's lots of MBAs and really good CFOs and good marketers and stuff like that can do that stuff. Who's good at mining Bitcoin? Who's good at letting Bitcoin be the center of the economy that they're trying to build from an infrastructure standpoint? Well, I would argue it's almost nobody. And I've put my money where my mouth is to prove it. So Bitcoin network, Gorilla Pool nodes. There's a very interesting problem that the blockchain poses us. I've been talking about big data. I talked about big data in my previous presentation, why big data matters, why you shouldn't be an infrastructure partner in the network, why you should rely on a company like mine. But the tools haven't been there. How do you get that data? How do you repurpose that data? How do you access that data in a way that is extremely reliable and extremely cheap? Someone that you can sign a service level agreement with, somebody that will insure your data against loss and all these other things. Well, that's been a little bit of a pie in the sky thing. Remember, I had people telling me that, oh, Kurt, you're just the theory guy. That's all great in theory. Where does the rubber hit the road? So we built a product. The product is JungleBus. It's one of the products. A blockchain is a monolithic piece of data. It's just a big distributed hard drive. So if you didn't have logic on your computer's hard drive as to like, hey, where are my JPEGs or where's my QuickBooks files or how can I even open my browser? Your computer has logic that routes which thing you are actually looking for. And they're very good at those things because those data structures are standardized and operating systems are optimized to use those standards. Well, that doesn't exist in Bitcoin. Blockchains are just a big chunk of data. So what do you do? Well, the typical way to do it is to be that infrastructure player in your own network. You need to run the full node. You need to run a query. If you have a slow computer, it's slow to access that data. Well, that sucks. Now all these promises, I'm up here saying blockchain is going to change the world. You try to do it. You can't even figure out how to get your nodes synced. You didn't actually accomplish anything. You're really irritated. Now you need to hire somebody who you need to trust, and that sucks. So JungleBus does two things. It creates that logic. It defines various logics for various protocols so that you can easily access data in a known and defined and clearly documented manner. It is also extremely efficient at accessing that data in a decentralized manner and serving it to you. So if you wanted to build a very high speed, data intense business on the BSV blockchain, you should be a customer of JungleBus, the product, Gorilla Pool, the company, and you should pay us for access to that blockchain data in a way that is filtered and served to you. So instead of running a full BSV node at a cost of, maybe $1,000 a month, plus whatever it takes to have a sysadmin, make sure that it's up all the time and that the data is good. That's already a lot of money right there. You can pay us something like $15 a month to sync just the data you need and keep it on your own system and have API access to our nodes that validate it with proof of work and our reputation and our guarantees and whatever insurance that you want to apply to it. So this allows you to very cheaply and reliably deploy a business that utilizes blockchain data in a way that you cannot do it in any other blockchain. This is a proprietary tool. We architected it internally. It's built entirely by our internal staff. It allows the blockchain to be that cornerstone of your business without any compromise. We do not have a competitor on this product. Why would we want to do this in the first place? Well, what is MetaNet? That's like a 2-hour presentation right here. But right now, the internet works with a bunch of interoperating protocols that know how to communicate with each other, which is why you can send a Gmail email to an Outlook.com address. They both just use the same internet email protocols, and so it just works. Well, in blockchains, this is why we have 20,000 blockchains that don't communicate with each other. They use completely different stacks. They use different logic to make all this stuff happen. That's no fun. So what we've done is with these data tools and the ability to serve this data, you can create an overlay network that works much like the internet, but is deployed on top of Bitcoin BSV. So with that, it allows you to send data packets over Bitcoin transactions instead of over just packet from server to server. So this allows you to encrypt data of any size from any point and decrypt it at the receiving location. So you get rid of man-in-the-middle attacks, you solve all kinds of security, like cybersecurity problems. And it allows you actually to be faster than the existing internet as long as your stack in Bitcoin actually works, which is what we're working on, is being essentially an ISP. So we're trying to redefine Bitcoin mining as this weird industrial thing that people don't understand. And we want to be more like AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, where you just like, I don't know, I pay $50 a month and I have access to this whole internet thing. That's what we're trying to be. This is the business model that we're trying to create to allow you to use Bitcoin the way that you currently use high-speed internet. This is complicated looking. I promise you it's not that complicated in practice. How do you broadcast data to Bitcoin? You currently could have a wallet. You have a Handcash wallet. Handcash wallet connects to an API that broadcasts your transaction from their server to a Bitcoin node. That's all well and good. The problem is at a certain scale, certain things start to break down. Either they should run their own node, which they shouldn't, and I know they don't. I got a CEO over here. We've had this conversation a million times. But then that begs the question, okay, so what do you do? Well, somebody's got to create a bunch of extra logic for that. Then you're using various APIs and other things. So you start creating another layer of interwoven interdependencies and all these things. A couple of years ago, there was a product created called Merchant API. Worked pretty well up to a certain scale. And then they realized, oh, shoot, Merchant API only connects to one node. And if it fails to rebroadcast, and we're breaking things again. So what Arc is a high power transaction engine. We figure it's about 1,000 times more efficient than Mappy, which means it's good for probably 100,000 transactions a second going into Bitcoin. And what it does is if it fails, instead of just failing and saying error, start over, manually reboot, whatever, it has this tumbler built into it that just keeps rebroadcasting it to our node, which is great, but it also sends it peer to peer to the rest of Bitcoin. So even if we're not the ones that can pick it up, maybe another node will pick it up. So what we're doing is we're sort of scattershotting it to the entire network for the sake of making sure that Handcash does not have to call us and say, hey, 40 million transactions ago, there's a missing transaction and it's screwing the entire system up. We can now just mitigate that, because the second that starts to happen, the system starts digging backwards and just flinging transactions back at the network until it figures it out. This is another thing that nobody else has deployed. Um, Nobody else even actually really seems to care about very much. This is a product that we have not announced yet until today. So this solves the incoming transaction problem that exists in Bitcoin and all the UTXO blockchains in general. This product built by a couple people in joint with the Bitcoin Association. It'll be an open source tool ultimately, but nobody really understands how to run it because they're not running mining operations the way we are. We're basically the only company that can run it at this point. So pretty cool. This is why we're unique. We allow transactions to go in and we allow data to come out of Bitcoin and be repurposed, indexed, served, and granted to you better than anybody else. Everybody is doing the same monolithic, slow, expensive industrial process way of doing everything. And we are very much trying to be like the Amazon Web Service or the Google Cloud or whatever of Bitcoin, where instead of you having to be some high level sysadmin where you get to just log into a very simple dashboard and say, okay, it looks like I need product one, product two, product three, put them in a bucket, pay Gorilla Pool. And now all of a sudden I am in a monetized, high frequency, high availability data business built on top of a metanet that is, it took you 20 minutes to set up instead of waiting weeks to synchronize your node, trying your tools, and having all these problems where you're trying to be this person that is the infrastructure partner in your own tech business. So uh, that's us. That's Gorilla Pool. Here's some of our clients, many of whom are represented here in the room right now, but and everybody else. But we want to work with you. If you want to start an app and say, hey, I'm going to have a ton of data, either going in or going out, come talk to me. We can help you build out your stack. We can say, hey, use this wallet instead of that, use this protocol instead of that. Here's ways you can connect to us. We're the only people that will answer the phone when you call and say, hey, did I do this wrong? Like there's somebody on the other line over at Gorilla Pool. And we're here to show people what Bitcoin is actually meant to do. And that's it. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thanks, Kurt. Are there any questions for him?
Kurt, I know you're probably pressed for time, but can you expand a little bit more on what you mean by the metanet, the Bitcoin powered metanet?
So the internet is inefficient. It's controlled by very few actors, and it's controlled in ways that are really poorly understood. So you can look into standards organizations like IEEE and ISO and some of these other things that define what the internet is and how it works. And the way that it works is you have servers that are sending data between each other, but there's opportunity for man in the middle attacks, or there's companies like Twitter that are scraping your data all day and all of that. To get into how the internet works is already a pretty long conversation for somebody that isn't technical. What we're talking about doing is first integrating to the internet. So a meta net is itself, think of it like a virus. Like we want to fill in these gaps that the internet doesn't do well. One of them is privacy. So you can't encrypt certain kinds of data between two types of servers. If they don't speak the same language, then they have to use like a carrier protocol in between them. And then there's redefinitions and all kinds of other things that are really complicated. if we redefine the internet stack and give people the tools to first utilize the internet uh, using Bitcoin transactions to feed that data from old world to new world, that's a way to start doing it. But at scale, what MetaNet actually means is we're going to replace the internet stack entirely. So instead of using Twitter on Twitter's servers and going through routing through Comcast and AT&T and using TCP/IP protocol all the way up the stack to your web browser that reads HTML and CSS and all of these things, we can redefine that entire stack through Bitcoin transactions. So you can send in a Bitcoin transaction the logic of a website and what database that it should connect to. And it uses cryptographic hashes to say this data should be shown to this person provably because they own it. And there can't be somebody in the middle. And even if they got in the middle, they just get gobbledygook. And so instead of letting Google ads read your stuff in the middle and do all of that nonsense that we know that they're doing, now it allows you to say, okay, you have to pay me. It can come by with a penny and say, if you pay a penny, you can see it in the middle and maybe advertise to me. You're going to pay me a penny every time the packet gets sent. Now we're talking about big compute. This is big cloud compute stuff, very big data. But ultimately, we can redefine and redeploy the entire internet over time. It doesn't we don't need like a cutoff day where you shut off the old internet and start the new, because we can integrate with it. So, but at scale, MetaNet truly is a replacement for the internet over Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the base layer. You got these transactions, but in those transactions, you can push any kind of data. And if you can make Bitcoin scale to any scale, then you can push all the data in the world in a Bitcoin transaction. And that allows you extreme data privacy, extreme availability, extreme auditability, and the ability to monetize every byte of data in the world, which is incalculably valuable. At least I think it is. So that's what I'm shooting for.
Okay. Any other questions for Kurt?
I got a question.
Sorry, where's that?
Let's say let's say that I ran a satellite imaging company and I had lots of really valuable, important data that I needed to keep secure from potentially malicious sovereign actors. How would I use a company like yours?
So we could set you up basically direct API access, give you cryptographic keys that you need a signed transaction in order to upload to it. And so the system on which the images are generated can encrypt the data, and you can send a Shamir hash puzzle or something that we have the partial key to unlock on the other side. And it can be a 3 of 5 multi-signature wallet. Like there's a lot of cryptographic games you can play to secure that kind of data. So let's say it's the US's data about such a thing. Well, who should be able to unlock that? It might be like the president, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and like the US, whoever the admiral is of the Air Force. And like you need at least those 3. And if they have the keys to it, they can unlock something to view it and share it. But if any of their keys get pulled, it's just re-encrypted and whatever. And it means, well, the beauty of that is that even if you have, Russian hacker number 1 standing in the server room and looking at it and putting his USB thumb drive into the server where it exists, he can download it, but he would have to break Bitcoin. He'd have to break SHA-256 and it's impossible. So even if they completely exfiltrated all the data, it's just gobbledygook. Thank God for cryptography. And this is something that actually happens. If you guys read about like FireEye, who I mentioned in my previous presentation, like they got hacked. They're the cybersecurity firm for the Department of Defense and NASA and all kinds of other major government infrastructure players. They got breached for like 2 years and didn't realize that they were just leaking data to some foreign entities. So like Russia, China, Iran, whatever. And because the data wasn't encrypted and because it was using all these old internet systems, it's just out there. They just have it. If this was happening over Bitcoin, it wouldn't even matter if they stole it. It's just encrypted junk. It's worthless without those keys. It's a major, major, major problem that Bitcoin solves.
Cool. Well, Kurt, thank you very much. Let's give it all up for Mr. Kurt Wuckert Jr.
Thank you.